Hey, how you doing? This is Kenya COVIAK, and welcome to Curious Herbalism. Okay, so before you start freaking out and stuff like what's really going on, mosquitoes, y'all. It's mosquito season. And matter of fact, to really expose that I've been in the woods, cockaburs. You don't need pins when you've got those, right? Okay, so it's been a minute. Let's dish. How have you been? I've been waiting for you to come back. I've been waiting to come back. And I just wanted to take a little time to actually talk about a particular plant today that most people don't talk about unless they're talking about food. But it's got some magic in it, it's got some stuff. Okay, so we're going to take this down because you all are used to seeing me without a scarf or a veil. Curiously enough, I used to wear a scarf. I used to wear that because I was in a magical cult. Would you expect anything less from me? But so I used to wear it. I used to wrap it up, flip it, rub it down. Oh no. Okay, well maybe not that, but I used to wear it all kinds of ways. But what I wanted to do though is be a little sassy. I felt like being sassy today. I really feel sassy. I got my little scarf. I got mosquitoes. I'm by my beautiful plants. The birds are flying, and I feel good and sassy. And why am I saying sassy? We're gonna talk about sassafras. Not suffering succotash, but sassy little sassafras. Sassafras, if you didn't know, is actually one of the plants that they make root beer from. A real root beer, the real stuff, not the fake stuff. I'm not judging, do your thing, but don't confuse sassafras with sarsaparilla because they're not the same. The sassafras is a tree, it's its own tree. And if you want to find it in the woods, what you want to look for is a dinosaur foot. Phew! Oh, excuse me. Look, get a little weather change going. But it looks like a dinosaur foot. Now, you may think, oh, well, then I know if I find a little dinosaur foot with the large lobe in the middle and the two, one on either side, then that's for sure what I have to look up for sassafras. That's not right. Look in the guidebooks, make sure, because sassafras is one of those tricky leaves. You know how when you look for mulberry leaves, they change shape, they don't always stay the same. It's the same thing with sassafras. You don't always get three lobes. Sometimes you'll get a two-lobe sassafras. It'll look like a mitten instead of a dinosaur foot. Or sometimes it'll look like a reverse mitten or like a double mitten. I'm just saying, you can't just automatically assume that just because it doesn't have three lobes, it's not sassafras. So you have to learn to identify these things. And the other thing about sassafras is if it's growing in the wild, if it's in a completely shaded area, it's probably not sassafras. Sassafras might be near the edges of areas that are shady, but it needs some sun. It does. There's something else about sassafras. Mama sassafras usually has a bunch of little baby sassafrases all around her little base because they feed off mama too. So right about now, you're probably saying, "Oh, well, she must spread, from the bottom over." Yeah, she does. But the thing is, you hear me saying she, and that's because sassafras has flowers on. They have the male and the female sassafras trees. They're not on the same plant. So you're looking for the lady sassafras if you're looking for little babies around her. Also, she's the one that's going to bear fruit. So you want to look for that. I don't know if they necessarily always grow near pawpaws. I don't want to lie to you. And I know that people call pawpaws American serviceberry, but that's slang. That's not quite right because American serviceberries are a little bit different. Okay, they're a little bit different. They're June berries. They're about that big in this area for the serviceberry. and pawpaws about this big, and it tastes like custard and has really big seeds. Little sassafras. Now, the thing about sassafras is you've probably had it if you have had root beer, but in another place you may have had it and not realized it. If you've ever had gumbo filet, you've had sassafras leaves. Yeah. Did you know there's different colors of sassafras root? There are. It could be anywhere from red to a red, to some of it's a little whitish, greenish. There's different colors. So they say there's different properties depending on the color, and that you shouldn't drink a lot of the white sassafras because it's more dangerous to you than the red sassafras root. But I do not have evidence to that, so I do not want to lie to you. Um, Now, sassafras has been used for health matters and everything throughout the ages from different cultures in these Americas. But why is this important to us magically? Well, you need to know what it's good for, especially when it has to do with health matters, so that you know all the different kinds of ways you can use it. Now, we only have so much time here. I'm not going to be getting into 1,000 different ways to use sassafras. But one thing I will say is it also helps with circulation in the blood. It expels worms. If you think about it, if you're cooking with it, you'd want something that if you were already ailing or might have meat of a suspect nature, that it could get rid of it. It might be a little vermifuge. Um, but there's some magic into that sassafras too. But before I get into a little bit more about the magic of sassafras, let's talk about the magical shows on this network. Now that we've done that, paid our bill, let's talk about some of the things you can do to help you pay your bills with sassafras. You like that segue, didn't you? You liked it. Okay. So, sassafras is one of those plants that's used in gambling magic and in good fortune. It can bring prosperity and good luck. And people often will make a little bit of a bundle to draw money and good prosperity toward them with sassafras. Now, here's the thing, it's not so much that it was good luck by itself. It is kind of the different kinds of stories associated with sassafras. You see, when people got here, and I know the word discovered is one word. I guess if I go into your room and find your money on your dresser, I discovered it, right? But when they came here and were exposed to the sassafras here, they got excited. They could see all the different things that they could use it in. It was medicinal. It helped with venereal diseases. I'm looking at you, settlers, but but not just the settlers. But it helped with circulation. It helped with blood. It helped with arthritis. It helped with rheumatism. Allegedly, it helped with all these different things that they needed help with when they got here because they were hurting. They were in that ship all that time. They were getting used to the cold. What they did, they just went on a whole rager and started gathering up sassafras. And then they would take giant loads of it and they'd ship it back to the old country. Well, here's the thing about sassafras, it got a reputation of whenever you shipped back sassafras, the ships didn't sink. Now, that doesn't mean they would never sink. It just seemed that when you was shipped back, the ships weren't sinking. It was like a lucky kind of thing. And because of that, well, the legend says the people began to associate it with luck. They began to associate it with prosperity. They started putting things like sassafras fittings and things onto the ship. And I'm not talking about on the outside. People started cooking with sassafras. They started using sassafras to treat the wood of certain kinds of drinks that they were going to store in barrels. It's a thing. It's like a hit or miss. But we know through trial and error, sassafras does bring good fortune. Sassafras does help. Now, I'm just going to tell you. If it were me, and I can't tell you what to do, if I were going to make a little object, maybe, a little bitty money bowl, I might carve it from sassafras. And that's because sassafras is a softer wood, and it's the kind of wood that you can carve a little bit easier than others, especially if you're just starting to learn. Now, keep in mind, people have different kinds of traditions or practices or beliefs around different kinds of plants and different kinds of green helpers. So, the most prominent one on sassafras is that they don't want you to set it on fire. Many people will swear you do not burn sassafras wood. And I have a bunch of people who set it on fire. So, that's on you. But for me, when I use sassafras, I like to boil it. I like to make a decoction. I like to make a brew or steep it. That's what I like to do because sassafras kind of lends itself to a little bit of dampness. It's kind of a thing. Now, sassafras has something in it called saffron. And that particular that particular chemical, and it's naturally occurring, is something that can actually be carcinogenic. It can actually cause cancer. So you don't want to get too much of it. But then again, nutmeg does too. And I don't see anybody warning you against nutmeg. I'm warning you against nutmeg. Don't go crazy with nutmeg. Don't try to be like Malcolm X or Malcolm Little when he was younger, sitting up there getting high off nutmeg. Don't do it. I know what you were going to do. Don't just put things in your mouth. It's not good for you. But, but sassafras can be good for you. Most of the time I tell people, learn the whole plant. Don't just learn part of it. And for many of you, if you find sassafras, you're finding sassafras root. But make sure you remember sassafras leaves have a different kind of energy as far as how they can be put on to use on your body. You could take sassafras leaves and make poultices. You can break them down and make them into ointments and salves. You can even make an unguent. You can make a liniment with it. And it's really good for bug bites too. Maybe for burns, I'm not so sure because everything that they say is good for burns is not necessarily good for burns. So, take that with a grain of gumbo filet. Take it with a grain of salt. But, that's on you. Another good thing is you can make a drink with it. But if you're going to make your own drink with the sassafras, something like a root beer, why not make it a real root beer, as in root work? Why not make a prosperity drink? Why not? Think about it. Make yourself a little brew of root beer from sassafras. Then make yourself an incense from the leaves. Maybe mix it with something else, like a little bit of cedar, a little bit of pine. Bring it together. Get yourself a little nutmeg and add it in there. Then maybe put some quicksilver in a nutmeg and put it to the side so you can enchant it and put it into a little tie up or a little bag with what's left over. Maybe anoint your candle with a little sassafras leaves ground up into a little bit of a magical powder. I'm not here to tell you what to do. Maybe you want to get lucky. Maybe you want to get lucky and maybe ward off something like a venereal disease. So add that to your little love draw magic. Remember, this can help. Maybe you want to do a little work on somebody else who needs poppet work done, who has aches and pains and the rheumatism and all the tisms and the ritises. You would add that to your bag or your poppet. You can find a way to use it. It's there, and I hope you do. Now, remember, see me at my magical I'm having a moment. My Magical Cottagecore Life, that is my podcast. And see me here in Michigan at the Michigan Witches Ball. And join me in 2 weeks because I have a special herb just for you. All right, now, see you there.